Hello everyone, it's Kay here with another sponsored project from the Handy Hippo Crafts site. This time I would like to talk to you about decoupage or decoupage, depending on where you come from and what you've actually seen by way of applying small pieces of decorative paper or plain paper or any kind of paper onto projects. It's very different from papier-mâché, which is the process whereby you soak paper, use PVA glue to form a mask. For example, you might inflate a balloon, coat that with the newspaper mixture, and it usually is newspaper and PVA glue. You allow it to dry and then you very carefully cut around it and it forms a shape that you can then decorate. Decoupage is layering of small pieces of paper onto a specific item, whether that item be a box, a set of drawers, a mirror, a wooden veneer, whatever you care to mention. That is termed decoupage. Decoupage is another pastime in very much the same principle, but it deals with a very much finer paper and is, although in principle very much the same, it's slightly different insofar as you buy specific papers for your project and then use them accordingly. So to go on from there, decoupage is a really lovely pastime. You need very few tools to be able to achieve a good result. Primarily a brush. This is just an ordinary brush that I've had for a long time, but you will find brushes and so on the Handy Hippo site. You want one that's about ½ an inch thick, anything finer, and the glue or whatever medium you use will tend to become very tacky before you apply your papers, and that's not always the best idea. You want to keep a certain amount of moisture to anchor things down with. A pair of scissors, either large or small, whatever you're more comfortable with, and possibly a ruler. It really depends how you want to manage what it is you're making. Now the other thing is an adhesive or a glue based something. Some people use a UPVA glue, which is all well and good, but it does need to be diluted. The preferred medium is the Mod Podge. There are several finishes to it. There's a gloss luster, which is the one in my left hand here, you're right, or a satin finish, which both in my experience look really nice on a finished article. Clearly if you want something with a high gloss that is going to be used a lot, then you would want the gloss because it's a more hardened effect. The satin does the same thing, but it's a very much softer sheen, and I think it would probably last the same way, but you'd have to be careful if you used it as a decoration in a room, for example. You wouldn't want to be polishing it too often because I think the satin would in time become eroded. But these are the pots of the moment. There are several mixtures that with different kinds of effects to them. I believe on Handy Hippo you will find there is a little set of 4 or 5 smaller pots, ideal for somebody just starting out, because 8 fluid ounces or 236 ml, as is in each of these containers, would last a very long time. The gloss is current. I'll just check my notes here so I don't tell you any lies. The gloss is currently £4.50. It's on a special offer at the moment on the site for as long as that may last. Like everything, these things do vary, and the satin is £4.85. So 8 fluid ounces in each pot. You would get many projects out of these containers, so they are quite a bargain, I think. You will find them a lot dearer in other places. Some may match Handy Hippo's prices, but in my experience, Handy Hippo are probably one of the better priced sites to obtain this particular product. From Handy Hippo I was also given these new papers that they're holding in stock at the moment. These are decoupage papers, and they are really nice papers. This sheet, this pack is £3.49, and you may say £3.49, that's atrocious, but actually you have got 8 assorted sheets within this pack, and some of the sheets, if I show you, are actually double designs, like this one for example. They are very fine papers, but you see on this one you've got the green squared floral with a red banner running down through, so you've got an in-made decorative panel there if you wanted to do your main project in the green. There are children's designs in this pack as well, which are quite delightful if you wanted to put something decorative or encourage a child to join you in a crafting moment. And these papers you can use on just about anything. There's very little limit to it as far as I'm aware. You can see they are very flimsy. They will allow themselves to be cut or torn in any way that you would like. Clearly if you're cutting around circles and things like that, you wouldn't want to actually physically tear the paper, but it is all part and parcel of the decoupage way of doing, depending on the project. Here's another double-sided paper with the red and white spot, and then this orange with little flowers in it. They really are quite delightful, and depending, as I say, on what you wanted to use them on, the designs that you have are actually very nice indeed. Here's another one that I really do like myself. It's birds with some greenery and a little bit of flowers, and then you've got this pattern panel on the bottom. So you know, realistically these papers are excellent value for money. I'll show you how they look when they've been decoupaged in a little while. I'll just put those over there. The other thing I was sent, well, I was asked to select napkins because they are very much the flavour of the month at the moment, and I spied this beautiful napkin here which is really quite delightful. It's 2-ply, I believe. Yeah, you've got the pink, dusky pink roses, a couple of bowls here, something, dishes with candles in, some stars, and that I don't know if it's Christmas baubles, but it has that effect to it. But I just thought they were absolutely gorgeous colours, and decided that I would like to work with that. So that was something else I chose. I was also supplied with this wonderful die set. It's the cut and emboss stencil from Sizzix, and they really are lovely. You get 2 pieces in this set. They come beautifully packaged, as you can see, in their own little envelope, and they basically are tags. Well, that's what I've decided they are. They're just the Thinlits group. You can use them as tags, or in a little while I'll show you what I've done with this particular one that I fell in love with, as an aid to what I've put together to show you in this little video. So I'll put those back in without further ado and get on with showing you some of what I've done. What I'd like to do is show you a little bit of how I make the decoupage designs, with the hope that it will inspire you and encourage you to perhaps have a little try yourself. The other two items I chose to decorate from Handy Hippo, and they're relatively new in stock, are these wonderful little books which I thought were really quite sweet. You'll see inside I've actually finished one, and they open both in exactly the same way. You've got your spine, you've got a finishing to give the book effect when it's closed up, like this. And what I chose was the thinner tissue paper, which I've applied both inside and outside the box. I've used the lace trim that was on the bottom of the paper. So as with the ones that I've shown you, the top part were these stags in frames. There were also these little flowers which you may or may not be able to see. They're not terribly clear, but they are to me sat in front of me, if that makes sense. I then chose to put a little bit of ribbon to the inside of the little book so that I could then tie it off and keep it secure. That would be ideal for a nice pair of Christmas earrings or something of that nature if you had someone special that you wanted to give a little gift to. I'll just tie that up again to keep it all together. I then used the Martha Stewart snowflake punch and just cut up the three little snowflakes there, and some more of the ribbon just on the corner, bearing in mind that this is actually so small. It's barely 3 3/4 inches in length and just 2 3/4 inches in width. So it is a very small area to work with, but something like this as a first project to get the feel of it, although it is fussy to do on something of this size, I think it just lends itself to letting you build up your confidence a little bit and feel comfortable with the whole process before you move on to the larger of the boxes or books. It's quite a knacky little thing, you know. You could present it in this way, put I don't know, some foam or some such in the bottom, and it would make a lovely stick pin holder, a surprise gift for someone, whatever you chose really. But it's a versatile little thing, and so for £2.95 you get both of these, and I think that's not a bad price at all. They are beautifully made. It is the papier-mâché, it's not wood chip, but they are of a very good quality. You can hear they're not about to become flimsy and soggy as you work with them, because you do use quite a bit of glue when you're doing something like this. So they are, in my opinion, quite a little bargain, but the best bargain of all for me, and I've actually started and almost finished this because this is where I would like to lead today in this project. This is the Hexagon boxes, and these are £2.35. When you look on the site under craft supplies, decoupage and what was it, decoupage and decoupage papers, I think you'll find they are listed as six pieces, because what they do is count the lid as one. Just pull these out, so that becomes part 2. This lid, which becomes 3, and that becomes 4, 5 and 6. So 6 components, but effectively what it comes down to are 3 whole boxes that you can decoupage to your heart's content in any way that you choose, really. I've decided, because I'm quite liking how this has come to be, I've decided that this is the one I'm going to pursue for the sake of this video, just to show you how to apply your napkins. But the principle for any decoupage paper is exactly the same. So without further ado, what I'm planning is to decorate this box and then come back to this one to show you the intricacies of actually getting this beveled edge, which I'm hoping the camera is picking up. All the roses around the box I've actually layered and layered so that they are raised from the main body of the box, which is why the lid is actually finished, because I didn't put the rose on top. I wanted to use a couple of the dies that I was given, so I've just put those on the top and then placed the lace rose and the purple little rolled rose in the centre, and this lovely trim just around to lift it up a bit. So I'll put the lid out of the way and we'll begin. To emphasise again the use of the die that I showed you previously, what I've actually done here is put the die through my die cut machine, and you'll see that's the one I've used, and I've made one for each of the hexagon edges within the box. So I've cut it to trim, I've bent it around the lid so that instead of having this flat edge, you've got this peaked edge, which I thought was quite effective, and it will add another dimension to the project and not have them all coming out exactly the same. I've not done anything with the smaller of the boxes because I felt it more relevant to give you something a bit bigger to feast your eyes on, but I am interested in showing you the size of these, which is not insignificant. The depth of this box is 5.5 inches, and from edge to edge 4.5 inches, and then you add your lid onto the top, and that takes it up a fraction more as a finished item to nearly 5 3/4 inches, which I think you'll agree is not insignificant. It would make a very nice feature if you wanted to display it or just collect things in it. I'll put that over there. The middle sized box is 4 3/4 by 3.5, not again insignificant, and even the small box works out at 3 1/4 by 2.5, so they are fairly sizable little boxes. Were you to want to make a whole set for someone, then that would actually be very effective as storage jars. Now, to prime the boxes, and I do this purely and simply to give the Mod Podge something to anchor to, I just put a light coating over the whole of the outside of the box. You'll see there's a slight sheen to it. This is just to give something for the napkins to adhere to. On this one I decided that, on the first one I showed you, the large one, I decided that I wanted to feature the roses, which I'm going to do again in this one, just to carry through the theme. But clearly at the end of the day, when you choose whatever medium it is you're going to decorate your boxes with, you don't necessarily have to do that. I'm just talking about the traditional way of doing decoupage. So here is my napkin. As I said, always you take the backing from the napkin, which is very important, so that, and they are 3-ply actually, I wasn't quite sure, I couldn't remember, but they are 3-ply. Oh, come along. And you just gently peel those away until you've separated the backing from the coloured part of the napkin. You do need to be careful with this. There's no point rushing. It doesn't necessarily matter if you're going to use small parts of the napkin if you damage it, because you can. This is a very, very forgiving way of decorating anything. It really, really is. If you make a little error, it's not going to hold it against you. You are able to remedy it quite quickly. Now, what I personally do is line up my decorative medium, in this case the napkin, so that I've got a little, about an inch at the bottom, and then I just let that rest on the top of the box just for the first panel. Now, you do want to be careful when you start this. It's very, very important not to overload your brush, and to remember that it is tissue paper that you're dealing with. It doesn't want to be handled too roughly, and you don't want to get it too moist either. I've already given these pots a little bit of a shake up to let them know I mean business, and all I'm doing very, very gently is just applying a layer of the Mod Podge to the box. I'm trying to keep my strokes all in the same direction, but actually it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. You just want to ensure that you have an evenly covered surface with no debris, and you want to make sure that it's a clean, dust-free surface that you're applying to. And then you bring your decoupage paper down very gently. You don't have to be afraid of it, just respect it, and then pat it into place. Because it gets wet, there will be an element of creasing, but in actuality that just enhances your work. It is tissue paper, it's not a painted finish whereby you can just expect everything to be absolutely perfect at the end of it. Now, you just watched me snip these two ends. What I'm going to do with this is just forward it onto the bottom of the box quite liberally, as you can see, and take that through and onto the bottom. I'm not too worried about the top for the moment. I'm just going to get the next one into place, and again it's a follow on from where you were before. So bring back the napkin as far as you can to where you last worked. Apply your Mod Podge carefully. It is quite important not to trap any air underneath the napkin if you can possibly avoid it, but none of us are infallible. These things do happen, and as with everything, there's always a remedy if you get a large air bubble. Once it's dried, it is possible to slit the paper very carefully and just reapply some glue and level it down again. So I'm just taking this over and I'm just patting. I'm not putting any pressure onto this at all. It's just gently wanting to go where it wants to go. I'm again going to trim the skirt, and I will then decoupage the bottom. As you can see, it's all swimming along quite nicely. It doesn't have to take forever. I think, you know, as long as you're aware that you need drying time, and at this time of year it's actually quite ideal. You're not facing damp weather, we hope, and that kind of thing, but in general it's a nice time of year to be doing this kind of thing. If you feel the need at this stage to brush over your project a little bit, then do, but bear in mind again, it is tissue paper, it's not going to take a whole lot of stress. What I then am going to do is cut down by holding the napkin up and away from the box. I'm going to cut down, oops, toward the top of the box, and I'm just going to allow that. If I cut down again to the thickness of the hexagon, roughly speaking, as I said, this is very, very forgiving. I'm just going to let that piece then just settle into the box and the bit on the other side, so that I don't have to be struggling to place the rest of the napkin. So that's two sides done. I'm going to go and cut down again. I hope you're seeing this. You can trim off if you would rather, but I quite like to decorate inside and outside of my project just for finishing purposes. I think it makes it look a little bit more professional, even though it's handmade. You still strive for a nice finish. And I'm going to just continue around now, putting on the rest of the napkin. I think again the main thing is not to be afraid of it, respect it, be mindful of the fact that you are using tissue paper, not ordinary paper, although you can do the same kind of thing with ordinary paper. You just don't get such a nice outcome with ordinary paper. I think it makes it a wee bit chunky. This is quite delicate and, you know, quite a nice finish. So that's that side done, and again I'm going to cut down to the top of the box. This is just such an ideal size for these napkins. My cutting is awful, but it, you know, this is inside the box. It's not going to be particularly visible by the time I've finished. Again, the skirt on the bottom, and you see all of this is just covering so nicely. I'll cut up to the bottom of the box, not quite to the edge. I just want it to roll over the edge of the box so that it sits there looking as though it belongs there. Another bit of the Mod Podge on the bottom to hold it down. And I'm just going to run my brush around the edge, and you see it just wants to follow on in that manner. It is very, very forgiving working with these kind of papers, and you'll find the same with the tissue paper that I talked about at the start of the video. It just lends itself to this kind of work. It's very, very lightweight and very, very easy to manipulate. Take that down into the box. And if I show you what's happening inside, as I'm going along, the box is quite naturally becoming decorated inside. You've got no unfinished edges at the top of the box. I'll just bring this round again to marry up with the side that I started out with. Now on the larger box you do have to put an extra panel in from another napkin, because obviously it's larger and it's not going to be quite as accommodating as this middle size one, but for this size it's ideal, and one napkin goes all the way around the box, which you couldn't ask for better really. Just holds itself beautifully. Now while I'm going to just seal off this outside and paint the inside with the Mod Podge, I'll just finish that little bit and cut up that corner into the edge. And even the base of the box, as you can see here, if I fold it over carefully, from that one napkin has virtually been covered, which is absolutely superb. You do want to be very careful when you're holding the project where you hold it, because remember the glue will seep through the tissue paper and you can end up leaving little bits like I've done here, a bit on the vulnerable side, but that is not any huge cause for concern because it is decoupage, which is multi-layered, and were you to want to put on little patches here and there for that kind of thing, you're not breaking any rules by doing so. I'm just going to pop some of the Mod Podge inside the box just to anchor it down so you get a good idea of how it looks, whilst I tell you that the decoupage in Wikipedia is listed as the art of gluing coloured paper cutouts with paint and finishing with gold leaf or other colours to complete whatever you've covered with your paper cutouts. It actually started in the tombs of Siberia many years ago, where the Siberians used to put their loved ones into their resting places, and they used to decorate the boxes or whatever they used with felt, which I found quite intriguing. The practice then somehow managed to go to China. Was it China I was reading? Yes. And by the 12th century was being widely used by the Chinese, because of course they do all their lantern work and their beautiful lions and that kind of thing for their parades and festivals. And in time, Italy, mainly Venice, who got into exporting and importing all that time ago in the 17th century, they too must have done a bit of bartering on their travels, because that is when decoupaged items began to come into their own in various what are now European countries, and were actually quite widely sought after, because the true skilled people did such glorious jobs with their decoupage. You know, it's a considerable talent in some countries where they, just popping my ruler in there to keep it down, where they make an art, a pure art form of decoupage. So I hope you found that interesting. I was quite intrigued to think that, you know, even before the 12th century it was something that was used quite extensively in several cultures, it seems. So anyway, that's the box. Outside it's a little bit ropey on the inside, but I have to wait for that to dry before I can actually finish it off completely and smooth it out. Now the plan is to do exactly the same thing on the box. I'm not going to go through that at the moment for the obvious reasons of time, but all you do again is put your doily over the top of the box. If I just separate one again so that you can see what I mean. This would require a little bit of fussy cutting. It is possible to break the tissue once it's anchored onto your project, but it's not something that I would advocate because it can leave you with some quite messy edges to deal with. But there's the backing of the napkin gone. So starting, I would actually use the whole of this because I've got the extra edge coming down through on the lip of the box, like so. I would start in the middle, and then I know that wherever I'm going, I can just feel the point here. That is my edge, and I would want to fix that on and then fussy cut around it. What I would probably do, in all honesty, is paste it on and then let it dry, cut it and then paste again, and then I would do the inside in exactly the same way. So I would then be left with this nice decorative edge around the lid. So I hope that has been helpful. I'm going to let this dry and move it out of the way because I'd like to show you the 3D effect on the roses. I want to do one more layer of roses on the large box, and then you'll get an idea of the finished item. Just take the lid off again. Now this again is time consuming, but in its truest form, this is what the decoupage is all about. Now I've got a whole napkin here that I'm not going to do anything with at all. I'm not peeling back layers or taking it back to just the coloured layer. I'm actually going to fussy cut out the roses on the napkin using my great big scissors here. So just, I'll do it. You'd obviously take a lot more care than me in doing your own project. You might decide that you wouldn't want to do this. You might decide that you just would like layer upon layer of different colours for a really bright and cheerful pot. But what I'm doing is just cutting out the roses. I've chosen to take the whole of the rose in this instance. You can reduce the size of the rose. It's entirely up to you. These, in this particular napkin, the roses are beautifully drawn and you see the petals, and you can actually cut them smaller and fit them onto your project with great ease. It's not a problem. The thing to remember when you're fussy cutting anything at all, whether you're using small or large scissors, is not to move your scissors, move your paper. There is a rose nicely cut out there, even with my great big scissors. Okay, so now what I want to do, I've got my rose here that I think matches that beautifully. From that then I am going to make several layers from this cut out bit of napkin, because I really don't like to waste anything. And what I want to do is make a little bit of padding underneath the rose. So I folded it so that, if you look, I can put it behind the rose. Now there are 3 layers there. I can put it behind the rose and you're not seeing any of the outside edge. I'm going to lay my box down. It's already a little bit raised, which I'm hoping you can see on the film. If I roll it a little bit, can you see the raised edge if I take it round? Yeah, so that's the aim. I just wanted to pick out these beautiful roses and make something of them. So this is the 4th layer of the rose that I'm now applying to the box, and I just hold that in the centre, open up my Mod Podge again, and starting underneath I just wet down the centre padding. I then bring out, ooh, I need to pick that rose up a bit, bring out the edge of the rose to meet the rose underneath, and I'm just spreading this very carefully onto the box. And as you do this, the padding inside, if your fingers stick to it, just use the glue to ease it off. It likes that. You don't want to just pull away from it because it will ruin it. But all you do, as I'm doing here, is just apply the whole thing to the main part of the box. Now what I'm using here is the satin finish, and once this is dry I would go over the whole of the box with the gloss. So if you see now through the camera, I'm hoping you can see the difference that adding that 4th or 5th layer has made. If I take you on to the next rose and then back, I'm hoping you can see how very much more raised the rose is. I'm looking at my film crew to tell me that he can see the difference.
It's like a cushion.
That's right, he's saying it's like a cushion, which is how I wanted it to appear. So we'll go on and we'll cut out another rose. And this is all you do. Now I've picked out the rose because I particularly like the rose, but it may well be that on whatever you decide to do, it's something completely different. You can actually pick up bits and pieces throughout a design. It doesn't have to be a rose. I just chose this for ease so that you could see what I was doing. It may be a bird, it may be a branch on a tree that you want to particularly emphasize on the side of your work. As you go along with this, certain things just jump out and call for your attention. Obviously a lot depends on what you choose for your picture medium. Some people may not want to do anything as structured as this. They just might want a whole range of different colours that they can put on however which way they like and just have a really pretty, bright, elegant box. There's the rose there, as I did before, that they can display and keep pens in. You don't have to use the lids, obviously. It's very much personal choice, but it's nice to think that you're doing something like this for a specific, you know, whether it's storage, whether it's decorative. It's just nice to have something like this that you can look at and think, well, yeah, actually I did that and I'm very proud of it. Some people choose animals, and I've seen a lion done like this. I've seen a tiger done like this, and how it had been done was that the background of the box was done in green, and the tiger face had just been cut out from several napkins and just placed on the box where the designer wanted them to go, and it looked absolutely superb when it was dry. It really did look like a main feature, so don't feel that you have to be held back. This, again, like every other craft you can think of, is very much about where your imagination takes you with any given project. And we all have our preferences and our special things that we like to do and have around us. And I just happen at the moment, I'm not a great rose person, I have to say, but I think for me the colours in this and the fact that it's a little bit festive just worked. Just fussy cut out this last rose, and if you watch, I am definitely moving paper, I am not moving my scissors, and this is what helps when you're fussy cutting out anything from any for any project. Never try to bend your scissors, which are completely static at the end of the day. Always use your paper to get the desired outcome, and there it is, as quick as that. This is a lovely pastime, as I say. It's something that you can do of an evening. It's something that once you've got your base layer on, if you get called away to pick the children up from school or to cook a meal or anything of that nature, it's something that you can pick up and do at a later time. It doesn't have to all be done in one hit. I've folded up my padding as I did before, and it literally is just scraps from the various bits that I've cut out. The main thing is that it's hidden behind the rose, as it is here. I'll just trim that around again, just a little bit, because it's only really the centre of the rose that I want to be featured. If you look at nature in all her glory, nothing is flat. It all has its little kinks and outcrops, especially to draw the eye. Nature isn't perfect, she just looks perfect in her setting. So I'm just going to pop this little rose on here. Now at this point, were you to consider highlighting any aspects of the project that you were doing, this is when also, as the Mod Podge is drying, you would add glitter or perhaps some staining that you wanted a bit heavier in one area more so than the others. This is when you would do that particular part of the process. I'll just pop this in here. This is an awfully long video, ladies. I just hope you can sit through it, and gentlemen, if you're out there. Now that is all the roses, and I am really happy with the 3D effect. I'm now really lathering on the